today we are starting a new format from time to time, and it's going to be a fearsome foursome. We have Dwight Peccora. Many of you know him, out in Missouri City, Texas. Huh?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
What's up?
That was Fort Bend.
Dr. Trey
Missouri
Tippit,
City.
who was on the pod with me, and he and I rode solo on a recent one. Trey, it's getting great downloads, by the way.
Fantastic.
On our pod that we talked about, like saturation is kind of not your enemy. Like that's not the metric you need to look at. So Craig and I obviously are here, and these two guys, and we all four go way back. You guys have been in Mastermind several years. We collaborate and talk offline a lot. And we all have kind of disparate. Well, I shouldn't say we have different practice models almost. Of course, everyone knows mine and Craig's. Trey, quickly, just in a nutshell, kind of, why don't you just give yours? Because I think that's the emphasis of why all four of us are on here.
So our model is based on bread and butter. I would even say single tooth.
I'm sorry, I got to cut you for a second, brother.
No,
no, it's great. It's all good. But we know you really well, and Trey's got this microphone that makes you sound like freaking Luther Vandross. That's not your voice.
I do sound like.
You are like four octaves deeper, or you're high, or something.
Why can't I be Luther Vandross? Why'd you have to cut me off?
I'm sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, rude, Craig. I'm sorry, Trey. Proceed.
But no. Dwight started because he started smiling when he started speaking.
So
I've got 15 operatories. It was just a tidal wave to caught everybody up, man.
Okay, Peter's questioning why we're all four on here right now. He's already wondering.
Wondering, God, what a catastrophic mistake.
We should have done our intros, man.
I should have.
All in intros.
All right. Well, I didn't want to be Jason Calacanis. So
you want me to do them?
Yes, you be the Jason.
I've not seen the All In podcast in full.
What?
Disclosure. Yeah.
Great.
Trey, have you seen it?
Well, I've listened to it. I haven't seen it.
Trey's
right, I've been sitting here and I'm jotting stuff down right here, right now. So I'm going to throw something.
Okay,
do it.
All right. This is how the intros are for those of you who haven't seen it. So it's just, I'm trying to be nice, but I'm also trying to be harsh because it's more in honor of Peter because I know he and I love this stuff. So, all right, we'll start with one of you. All right, he's dentistry's own Tony Robbins and is back to frequent his mega practice in Delray after finding himself in the Aspen Mountains. He's our vision-focused golden retriever who never lacks the chance to remind us of his feelings. His heart is the only reason Peter has not turned into a White Walker. He's our very own trailblazer, the one, the only Craig Spodak.
Wow, that was nicely written.
Amazing.
Wow.
You are the Jason Calacanis.
Dwight, you wrote that. That's
Dwight. All right, keep going, Dwight. Keep going.
Well, he texted me this morning. He's like, "We got to roll with it." All right.
Who texted you?
Yeah.
All right.
Me.
He's all gas, no brake, with the highest burn rate of any dentist. He's ice cold, unemployable, bulletproof brain behind us all that can make any practice profitable. His biggest anxiety is keeping Craig focused. The enterpriser himself, our connector, Peter Boulden.
Thank you.
I think.
Welcome to my show.
I think. Hey, man,
all right, keep going.
One more. All right, Trey. Let's see. He's the king of efficiency, the unavoidable competition in the Houston market. His drive to scale comes only second to his legendary happy hour tales. He is the rainmaker himself, our very own Trey Tippit.
Tippit.
Dwight, I'm so impressed, dude. I mean, I'm so impressed.
Do a happy hour, man. You become an alcoholic.
Just so you know, the all-in pod, like the guys, Chamath Pali Papadilla, Jason Calacanis, Freeberg, and David Sachs. David Sachs is the PayPal Mafia. All these guys are like uber successful billionaires. Like this podcast is so popular that it's actually influencing Congress from time to time. Like it's that big of a thing.
Cool.
So Jason Calacanis does the intros like that, and kind of he roasts at the same time, does intros for all the guys, and it's kind of funny. But Dwight, you did an awesome job. That was a tough one.
I mean, I was trying to be nice at the same time.
Yeah. I think you might be our resident. So, guys, given that this is a fearsome foursome inaugural pod, essentially, I wanted to show up prepared, as Dwight would say, as my enterpriser role. So, I wanted to get into something a little bit. I was thinking about something the other day as I was reading a book, and the book was habits of highly successful people. Okay. And I said, all right, well, there's probably, let me extrapolate that and see if we can't break it down into what I'm going to add this here to the stream, break it down into what I feel is that of 8 habits of highly successful dentists. Right now that Craig, we've done now coming up on 3 masterminds, tons of summits, friends, we have our own experience. Dwight, massive practice ecosystem. Trey, massive ecosystem. So, you guys are highly successful dentists, as well as some of the data that we've seen just from kind of helping and coaching other practices along the way. So I want to get your feedback. You guys haven't seen this, but I want to go down some of these traits because I think it's nice to see. And if we talk about self-awareness, right, Dwight, that's a big thing that you kind of teach with Craig is kind of talking about like know thyself.
Right.
Sometimes hearing things like this is like, yeah, like I see that, but like I don't want to do some of that stuff because it's just not in my wheelhouse. I want to be a craftsman dentist and be the best at my craft, which is kind of, Craig, what we talk about all the time, right?
Yep.
So the 8 habits of highly successful dentists. My first one I have is an homage to Craig and Dwight. Yeah, they have a clear vision of what they want. And so much so that they kind of know, here's where I want to go from a revenue standpoint. Here's where I want to go from a size of my practice, size of my team, number of locations, number of team members. Culture should look like this, right? Here's what our bonus structure should look like. When I say vision, I mean extreme clarity on the minutia even of it. Craig, can you talk about, I know you've done this several times in the pod, but you've talked about the exactness of your vision of kind of, when you
the
kind
precision
yes.
of, yeah. So, obviously clarity is power. And I think there's like a baby step just before this one. So I think there's a conscious decision that many business owners make of, okay, I'm going to go right to this step. What's the revenue, size, location, team members, culture, blah, 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 because that's going to support this other thing. And what I would just challenge everybody is put that first. So what does your life look like? Because your size, location, team members, and culture actually has a profound impact on your life. So I think your first vision is, what do you want your life to look like? Because we've had a mutual friend here that came to the practice and said, I want what you want because it's going to provide money when I don't have to be here.
And he gets here. You mean?
He came to my practice saying, I want what you have. And the reason why was it's going to create money while I'm not here. I want money when I'm not working, rather. And he came here and it's very clear by the end of the day. He's like, holy shit, this is super exhausting. I don't want this at all. And like our friend Bonner and stuff like that with the football analogy. So I think like just figure out, like, Pete, you always say there's one ticket in life. What do you actually want? Because the greatest travesty is getting everything you think you wanted and being unfulfilled. So I think there's a step before this. Like dentistry, as we always say, is a snowflake and it can accommodate multiple visions. What do you want your life to look like?
If you look back at my slide of the cover, it's talking about in the context of dentists.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
But like having, what does your life look like? Because all these things, revenue, size, location.
It's daunting though to say that to someone like, hey, not only figure out what you want your life to look like, but now figure out the vision of your practice. And
well, they kind of go together. So it's like eating the same, it's chunky at the same thing. So it's like, let's just say that there's a person who likes to coach high school football, like one of our masterminders. He loves it. Having 15 locations across 100 miles of spread would probably not add up to creating rules that would sustain his life well. Yeah. Or people that are introverts, you really, maybe you want a smaller team. I mean, we just conflate the vision of the business and what we really want in our life. And I think that's
Trey,
important.
Dwight, any comments on that?
I agree.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big questions I always ask is, what kind of lifestyle you want to lead? So the integration of it, it's not a balance. It's an integration of they intertwine. A lot of things that you have from a business standpoint can be applied to your personal life.
It's your voice again, right? Is that what people are like?
I have a problem.
Right. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
I think you're sexier than ever, Trey. That's what it is.
I mean, masculinity.
That's right, man.
I don't know what to say about it.
I'm with you. I would say that the biggest thing is successful people rely on being self-motivated, and self-motivation comes from your own personal vision of who you are, who you naturally are, who you wake up every morning wanting to be, and therefore creating an environment, and specifically your business, your practice, how you interact with your team, that motivates you to get to continue to be who you want to wake up to be every morning. And so for me, it goes back to the vision is based on your self-motivation. I would agree with Craig that your core has to come from somewhere, and that's where that comes from.
I guess too, in the context of this slide and saying the 8 habits, what I've seen of dentists who are ultra successful is there was not ambiguity in their vision. Like, well, let's just see what happens. I never really heard that. It was like I was laser beam focused toward X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And they had massive specificity in that X, Y, and Z.
Right. You know, it's funny. Sorry, Pete. Success is different for each of us too. So what you're hearing, and again, I love this conversation because when I hear success, I'm not thinking of the 8 things that led them to get to a high level of economic reward.
I'm not saying that either. I'm saying that there are commonalities and attributes that you see just as a trend. So you have enough data points, you start seeing, a lot of people in this bucket are sharing some of the same attributes, is all I'm saying.
Agreed.
Yeah, let me give an example. So like, the thing about the clarity of vision is that nobody can come up to you at any point in time in your day and knock you off that vision and change your path. You are so clear, so laser focused that you're knocking it out. And as crazy as Elon Musk is and thinks to that degree, right? He's got this absolute focus towards Mars. So much so that it goes to an absolute extreme that most of us are like, this guy's a psychopath, but he knows what he's going for. And the other day they asked him, because he had children with multiple women, things to that degree. And they asked him point blank, they said, so, you're nearing 10 kids, like, you're going to be a father to multiple different families. Like, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And his answer, the second they finished.
No, it was like, how many more kids will you have is the question, Dwight.
How many more kids will you have? And
the
second they finished, they didn't even finish the statement. He immediately said, well, someone has to populate Mars. His vision is so
I wasn't
clear.
kidding either. It was
he's not kidding. He's not kidding.
And he was almost
straight
biblical. It was like Abraham,
but
like
that
I'm creating
that
and
clarity,
I'm populating.
That clarity is so freaking powerful.
Yeah,
it's so powerful. Like I went to a business consultant in Texas named Roy H. Williams. He's called the Wizard of Advertising, and I sat with him, and I think Michael Dell had gone to him at one
Wizard
point.
Of Ads.
Wizard of Ads, correct.
Yeah. No.
So sorry, I don't know what I just said. But anyway, as I'm telling him my vision, he's like just like yawning and making fun of me as I'm talking. He's like, here's what you really need to do. And he tells me these 5 things that I really need to do. And I went back to the hotel and I read like my vision statement of what I wanted. And it brought me to tears. And I was like, I can't do that. I'd feel like, it was a way to make a lot of money. And it was a really cool concept, a business concept. But I felt almost like a prostitute of it was like prostitution of my dreams selling out. And I went to the Salt Lick that night and I didn't realize that they didn't sell alcohol. And I had to like bum beers off of people with Yeti coolers because I had to just drink. I had to have a beer. I was so upset about it. But thank God it was West Texas and everybody's really nice there. At least they were at the time. But that's the point. When you have that level of clarity and you really have done the work, nothing can stop you. And the unsuccessful people we know, they're wishy-washy about what they want. So like, the problem is you can't get employees, you can't get this, and this is going on. When you really boil it down, you don't know what the fuck you want, man.
Yeah.
You don't. You skipped step 1. You skipped the habit.
And then it's impossible when stuff like COVID or economic downturns or recessions come in. And then
there's no North Star. There's no
and
North
then it's
Star.
like, well, let's move here. But in the end, they continue to just give it up. And that's a good point.
So the gist of what y'all are saying is basically a vision's a filter. It keeps you on track, keeps you driving forward, and that gives you the clarity that what Craig was saying was, clarity's power.
Yes, I think that a filter is a great way. You guys may look at it that way. I like to look at it more like a roadmap, right? Because I'm a step-by-step methodical, and I'm like, look, I need to fill in the pieces to this roadmap, so to speak. So I guess it doesn't matter how you interpret it,
Yeah,
Trey,
I think all of them are valuable.
Yeah.
I think it's a roadmap, but ultimately a road leads to somewhere.
Totally.
So if the roadmap is going to Detroit and you hate Detroit, don't get on that road. I think that's the way to kind of put it
and
all.
have the freedom. Like, so many people, Craig, I think we go through these exercises and like it is a dynamic thing, meaning what you may have wanted when you were a 26-year-old dentist could be categorically different because now you have a little bit more experience in life. Could be
Yeah.
categorically different to your vision now. You are
Different
allowed to change and modify,
Right.
is my point.
Have
And
you
so
ever
many people get stuck in that. Well, I wrote this down at a seminar and therefore I have to live by this. Screw that.
Right. You guys know the feeling like when you realize that you're only stuck because you've decided you're stuck. Like, wait, I don't have to do this at all. Wait, what? I could just throw this whole thing away. And then you have this freedom. I don't know if that's just a me thing or if you ever feel that way. Like you've told somebody something that you wanted something for so long. Like, well, maybe I just start over. And it's actually really freeing. And dentistry allows you to do that, which is super cool. So I agree with what you're saying, Peter. If you wrote something down and you told your team and it doesn't fit and feel good anymore, change it. That's the best part. You got to change and grow a lot during life.
Number 2, habit. The second habit that we see a lot is they spend tremendous amounts of time building their teams up, right? So it is not the doctor is the hero scenario where the doctor is going to hundreds of hours of CE and just getting someone to suck spit and answer the freaking phone and all this stuff. They're building a culture. And I think this is probably one of the hardest things to do, I would venture.
Yeah.
In growing and scaling is keeping your team happy, keeping them engaged, keeping them growing. And the bigger you get, obviously the harder it gets because you have to then now you have a mass of 50 people, 100 people versus when you're 5 people, it's quite easier because you're intimately involved in almost all of those conversations. But I'd like to hear y'all's feedback on this second habit.
I get asked all the time. They say, "Hey, what do you do?" And the first thing I tell them is, "I build teams who happen to do dentistry."
Wait, hold on, Dwight. Someone
ask me
comes
all the
into an
time.
elevator and you say,
No.
and someone says, "Hey, man, what do you do?"
Yeah,
You say, "I
because
build
that is
teams."
me. That's my talking point.
And then the
now.
conversation ends.
Exactly.
So here's the thing: is
Yeah.
Oh, good.
For
Okay,
those
good.
of
That's
us-
uncomfortable.
I get passionate about building teams. Like to me, it's the greatest process because so much of us in dentistry think that our business is so different from every other industry for some reason, but really it's all the same. You build an incredible team. Whatever industry you're in has certain caveats that make it easier, more profitable, different things to that degree, less competition, more competition, but it all comes down to your team. And at the end of the day, you build that first and you go from there. And I talked about this at the
I would
summit.
agree with that, Dwight. You do that. And you know what's interesting about you? I don't want you to keep going, but you build autonomous teams, which I love to see. Right? It's almost like an autonomous organization where you encourage people. You are not the tip of the spear. Like people are making decisions in the absence of Dwight.
Absolutely.
Right. And that is an amazing thing to see when you empower your Craig, your team is the same way. Trey, I haven't seen your team, but I'm assuming kind of the same.
Oh yeah, they haven't seen him either, so of course it's the same.
Says the guy who's been on vacation for 8 weeks.
Dwight. I mean, Trey's way out of the way in your organization, right? Trey, you're way out. You got a real autonomous team.
So Dwight, I interrupted and I apologize. We do that a lot here.
But that's what it's all about. I mean, for me, unfortunately, if you're a good entrepreneur, then you feed off of momentum, which also tends to be based off of distractions. We can get distracted very easily. And so we have to build infrastructure around us to be like, I make these decisions and I move on from there. And I let the team, I decentralize decision-making by having a good team so that the machine can move forward regardless of where I'm at. And that tends to be what locks you into a single practice, what locks you into one small economic practice, a really small practical practice, and it feeds you and it is what it is. We talked about all these profile types. At the end of the day, you are who you are, but heavy entrepreneurial, successful dentists get distracted. They need a good team to kind of hone in on the vision and stick to it. So they knock that out. But at the end of the day, yes, awkwardly, yeah, I would say I tend to build teams. I have a passion about putting people together, and I build teams so that business can happen, so that ideas and development and entrepreneurship occurs. And that's what I love about it.
Trey.
I think building teams is to pretty much second what Dwight was saying. There's you as an individual, there's departments in a practice if it's big enough. There's a single practice. There's multiple practices. There's all these entities that scale up and get bigger. Think of it kind of as an inverted pyramid. And the building of the team is basically a way to scale, whether it be yourself or the team or the protocol or the practice or the business, whatever it may be. But it gives you the ability to keep going. It gives you an ability to exponentially expand your time or your work time, we'll say output there. So yeah, it's key. It's key.
Do you guys feel that you can scale? I'm going to flip this on its head. Do you feel that you could build a big organization without building your team?
No.
You feel it's undoable.
Undoable.
Well, define big.
All right.
So it's like
10 plus practices.
I don't believe that the vision can be accurately attained on the shoulders of one visionary. I don't think that visionary actually A, gets to the point of achieving their vision, or B, gets to the point of enjoying the achievement of their vision. Because if they've gone and scaled it all on their own shoulders, they've gotten there, and then it's a non-fulfilling vision.
Okay.
Well, it still can be done. I think it can be done.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of toxic.
I think that's going to be an
at the
individual
cost
basis.
of what, Craig? At the cost, and I'm going to fill in the blank. Possibly the cost of massive attrition of employees, right? Or massive retention, I should say, or lack of retention, right? People come in as hired guns, they leave unfulfilled, and they look for something else, right?
Well, I'll use myself as an example.
Dwight
I
yes.
was a very poor team builder. I was a team destroyer for a good portion of my career. I wanted it so bad. I wanted to grow. I wanted to get this thing done so bad, but I was walking around scared. The entire time, like, these people don't know what they're doing, and I'm the only one holding the bag. It's what you silently tell yourself that has the biggest outcome on your future, and that's what the shit I was feeding myself. So I drove people away, and I caused problems to the extent that certain people that want to work here, like, have asked people. I look at myself like we all should. I guess there's versions of ourselves, prior versions of myself that other people worked with have told current employees, you should never work there. And they're like, I don't know what they were talking about. You're the greatest. I'm like, no, not version 1.0, not that early guy when all that debt, Yeah. So why I say it's possible to do it, like, anything's possible. Like, is it walking distance? Yeah. I mean, it might take you fucking 6 months, but you can walk there. If you want to do it, you can get there. But I think it's going to be really, really costly and not fulfilling. So I'm a people person, but I was so scared in my early days of my career that I destroyed many good teams. And I had to learn the hard way.
This is not in order of importance, too, by the way. Of these 8, I was just kind of brainstorming.
But they do feed on each other, by the way, because your vision will build your team. If your vision is to revolutionize dentistry, if your vision is to, change dentistry and make it a caring, compassionate office, then your team will actually rally around that. A lot of teams don't build because they don't know where they're going. Right. And it's like that Saint-Exupéry quote that I always say, like, if you want to build a ship, you don't tell people to gather up sticks. You teach them to go explore the sea. They have to have more meaning than just a paycheck. And I think if you're really good at and you create a compelling vision for the organization, the team will backfill. And you have to then create the space. So at a certain point, you build your team by getting out of the way. But the first step has to be done too. And you told me that too. You told me that, Peter, like, when I was telling you that I'm going to go away and all this stuff, you're like, it's going to feel weird for you. I'm like, nah, it won't. And it does, actually, Peter. It does feel weird to go to an exact organization that's working well and just think, like, okay, despite me. Well, yes. Actually, I see it as because of us.
Of course. But okay, let me clarify that, Greg. But not despite you, in your absence.
Right. But so then it's like, okay, what do I do? And I know, Trey, you felt this way a lot, like, what do I do now? Because really, at a certain point, a leader has to change. You have to evolve. You can't be up in everybody's business, or else you'll destroy that team that you built. That's weird.
Yeah. So it is a weird paradox, Craig, to leave and then your organization do better than when you were present. Is
Right.
it's a
Well,
mind.
self-awareness. It's the
Yeah.
first thing you said. Okay, so then you have to take a long look and say, okay, what are the things that I add intrinsic value, and what are the things that I do that actually subtract value?
And
And
what are
then,
the things that fulfill me that now potentially I may have more time for, right? Going back to 1A, if you will.
or even worse, where I'm at, if the office fulfills me, I don't want to just use it for my personal fulfillment. The business is here to serve its patients and grow. And I don't want to influence the direction strategically of the business just to satisfy my own personal needs, which is even a bigger one. That's a bigger mind, you know. So,
This is quite the enigma, buddy.
The rabbit hole.
It is a rabbit hole. Okay. Number 3, Dwight Peccora, you will like this one. They know their numbers, right? They know data in their practices. They know new patients. They know average production per patient visit. I'm not saying they are like human calculators, but they are very cognizant of reviewing things on a regular basis. I can't tell you, and I am not throwing shame at anyone, but I can't tell you the number of times I've asked dentists, as we just had conversations, whether it's at summits, whether it's on phones, whether it's at other people's summits, and we just get into conversation, and I ask just general stuff, just conversational information. And the dentist is like, I don't really know that. I don't really know how many new patients we get a month, or I don't really know like what my production is per visit, or what our attrition rate is, or like it's mind blowing, and it's okay because they're probably there. I don't want to throw shade, but I also think that the dentists that I've seen that are really growing and being ultra successful and all the things, they know they treat their practice like a business, which it is.
Right.
Absolutely.
well, for us on this, the Fearsome Four, our practices are businesses, but many of our colleagues do not have businesses whatsoever. They think they do. But that you really don't. And the
Well,
definition
that's not true. They have businesses, Craig, but they are the number one employee.
right. And I think that's a very important thing to just, that nuance is significant. So if you were to invest
skill
in a
set.
business and
Mhm.
you said that, it runs on this one person, you may not want to invest in that business.
Right. What if said person gets hit by a bus is something I hear a lot. And,
Or if you're considering buying a practice and there's a really amazing solo practitioner and he's doing 2 million with his own hands and it's fantastic, you're really just asking if you'd want to buy his job from him. There's no intrinsic value outside of goodwill. And I think it's really important. And even we had 2 iconic speakers at our last summit, and they're really awesome guys. And I was saying about stress in business and how business can stress you out. And he looked at me and said, I've never been stressed about my business. I was like, because you don't have to, you only have to rely upon yourself.
Right.
If I didn't have to rely upon anybody, I wouldn't be stressed either. That's the leap of faith. But to the topic of number 3, if you don't know your numbers, you don't know anything. You're just going to go on feelings. And it always does amaze me too when I ask simple things, just like, what's your average production? What do you produce with your own hands?
Mhm.
What do you spend on advertising? What are your percentages of salary? They have no idea, most. If you're listening to this and you don't know that, get a handle on it and get someone in your practice to provide you those snapshots of numbers at least once a week.
And my advice, and I want to hear what other guys have to say. My advice to that was, don't get overwhelmed with thinking that you have to know 30 or 40. Pick the 4 that move the lever.
So what are those 4 guys? Let's talk about that.
I think it differs. I mean, we can
but
go
let's hear Dwight just real quick. What are the 4, and Trey, what are your 4?
First,
if you only could say 4.
Yeah. Well, first, I also want to say, like, when you're looking at numbers, like, I would be embarrassed. I'm at the level now. What I would be embarrassed if any one of you are in one of my practices and you ask somebody on my team and they don't know the number, I would feel embarrassed, much less myself. Right. So it is a daily morning huddle process. Every location, it goes much deeper than just us knowing some of these numbers. And sure, there's profit and loss numbers may not be necessary, but like new patient numbers, our daily goal, average production per visit. We're rolling through these hygiene numbers, the recall numbers. That those types of things should be part of your day to day. And some of you out there get a little concerned. It's like, oh, well, why are we talking so many numbers? Is it purely a business-driven dentistry, or is it patient care and blah, blah, blah? For me, it's still, and this is how I tell it to my team, it's like you're standing on a scale in the morning. It helps you make better decisions throughout the rest of the day. If I stand on the scale, I know, man, I put on 5 pounds from the partying this weekend. I'm taking the stairs, not the elevator. I'm choosing the salad, not the burger and fries. Like, that's the mentality. And that's the mentality for Morning Huddle. That's why.
Does everyone on this conversation share your numbers with your team? Trey, do you share your numbers with your team, financials numbers? Yeah. Craig, I know you do.
Yeah,
Dwight, I know you do, and I do as well.
Yeah.
I've actually been stunned by that. I've had people push back on that. Says, well, I don't want the team to know how well we're doing, which is interesting, right? Like, well, and back to your point, Dwight, about the scale. How do you know what a good day and a bad day is if you don't have calibration?
Right.
And by the way, the scale means something too. We're in a noble profession where we're actually helping people too.
Right.
So the money means we've helped more people. New patients mean they didn't have to go to the unfortunate experience that most of our colleagues are offering them. We're serving our profession. So yes, if we can influence and help more people, yes, let's do that. It's like, you know,
excellent.
It's a measuring stick of your ability to deliver care.
Exactly right.
That is exactly right. Yeah, that just sound good.
It does sound.
I just sound
actually,
good.
I've kind of gotten to where I'm kind of digging it now. Honestly.
Yeah, but don't talk to him on the phone because we'll sound.
Do not change that.
He'll sound like a pipsqueak on the phone. Hello.
Like when you're in 7th grade, you talk to your girlfriend.
Or the next time he's gonna be sitting there with helium, like.
You put some helium on that mic, you sound normal, buddy.
So Dwight, run down your. I mean, we could. If I don't keep you guys on track, we're gonna burn through the next hour of just being.
Well, top fast. What are the 4 for you guys?
Dwight, what would you say?
Production per visit.
Production per visit. Got it.
All right, everybody do one. Go.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, we're a foursome here, right?
All right. I mean, I'm just gonna go with straight know your collections.
Collections. Okay.
Yeah, that's huge, by the way. And then comparing it to the year prior. So June of 2022 versus June of 2021.
Year over year, month over month.
Love it.
I'll throw retention in there. So whether it be reappointment rate or your pre-appointment rate.
net patient growth is
like
that
a growth.
Nope,
number?
that's not what he's saying. He's saying the thing from kind of when we talk about dental intel, Craig, the pre-appointment rate of your hygiene, people leaving from your hygiene. And so you just gave the last one. You're saying net growth, Craig, I guess.
Yeah, I'm saying net growth. Well, I like an order of all of them. I like if I had to pick one, I know that's not a question, but Trey's would probably be the greatest single one for me.
Well, of course. I agree. I wanted to save that for you. I wanted to save the softball obs for y'all. Any others, Dwight, that you're looking at in terms of things that I know you kind of look at production per operatory or
you mean like utilization rate?
Yeah, your utilization rate, right?
Yeah, the dork numbers that Dwight gets into.
Yeah,
what's the production per operatory, by the way? What's that goal? What's that good one for you, Dwight? I'd love to hear that.
I love how we are all over. So I would say utilization rate, which is what he's talking about. Like at the end of the day, you've got to figure out, and this is more for if you're looking at acquiring, if your world is in mergers and acquisitions and you're figuring that out, that's where you end up. So if I would say 125 to 175 production per chair per hour, you heard that.
Okay.
Production per chair.
Per hour. Okay. So you break it down in hourly. So what's that breakdown in an annum?
On a what?
I was per year.
Oh,
yeah, dumb it down for Dwight, buddy. 1,400 per day times.
The truth is utilization.
Someone who knows mergers and acquisitions and not know the word annum, like
no, I actually didn't hear you because I prefer to hear it in a lower voice.
Oh, okay. I should have gotten Trey to say it.
Let me take this.
Let me take it in there. Let me show him where it's at.
My kebabs is sounding a little bit more awkward though. And
so what did you just call me?
What does that break down to? What does that break down to in a yearly then? Roughly?
Come on, you have to figure this.
I'm kind of curious because I actually have had this conversation.
250.
Where someone said like, "Hey, how much production should I be doing per operatory if I'm doing,
I think
where's the upper limit?"
Yeah,
it's such a broad because you can do per operatory per chair.
Yeah,
we're never gonna get through this. Per square foot. I mean,
come on.
But it has to do with your ability to take a practice for it as opposed to the day-to-day running of the actual numbers.
Yeah,
is what I would argue on that number.
Which is you don't have a number either.
Well,
kind of
because it's kind of
towards.
skewed. It also depends the type of chairs, the specialty care, the hygiene chair, all that other, which is why we look at it on a per hour per. So as an office and an
All
acquisition,
right, let
if
me
it's under that
rephrase this
number.
another way for everyone at home.
Yeah, go.
Dwight, I have an 8 operatory practice. I'm doing $1.6 million a year. I have more room to grow, you think, or am I reaching capacity? You shaking your head? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Dwight, I have an 8 operatory practice. I'm doing $2.4 million a year. Do I still have more room to grow, you think?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Dwight.
175 per hour per operatory is about 250 by
250.
my math,
Right.
per year. That's
So
the
that's at
answer
the
that we're trying
level
to find
where
7 minutes ago.
I understand, Craig. I understand. I'm going through, and I agree with that number about 250. At the level you've reached 250 of all the operatories, I think you should be able to look at another location or increasing capacity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
So that should be your natural cap. So it depends on the type of dentistry you're doing. Yes, super GP work, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But yes, that's a good roundabout number. If you're within that 200 to 300 and you know your business model, see where you tend to rely, and any more juice that you're trying to squeeze out of that practice will most likely turn into turnover and burnout on the team.
Agreed.
Which is better to just say, let's move on to the next location or the next acquisition
Or build more
expand-
capacity. Yep.
or expand
I
capacity,
completely agree.
which I
Trey,
threw
do you
that in
agree on
for
that? You've
upward.
expanded tremendous.
Yeah, I agree on that. And not only do I agree on that, I want to put a little pin in that,
Ooh.
and we should do an entire podcast
Okay.
on
Yeah,
that,
because
that is
that's a great topic, because I've been at 500 plus per op for a long time, and I know practice is far greater than that. So,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but you're going back to number one. Your mission was not multiple locations. It was, I want to build the dental hospital. So you did very efficient. You became more efficient with your space versus trying to grow your footprint.
but Peter, your like your Buckhead location is pushing that, 500, 600, I'm sure. So,
maybe on average, right? There's a lot of hygiene, of course. Hygiene numbers potentially could potentially bring that down versus the dollar.
But I don't need to know your gross right now. But how many chairs in that Buckhead? Because I remember at one
12.
time So you're
It's
But
not pushing 500, but I hear you.
Yeah.
I just think at the people, look, it's always a question hot in dentistry. When it starts with this, when should I look at expanding? And I think that when you reach the 225 to 250 operatory mark per operatory per year, I think it's feasible. I think you have enough cash flow and enough profit to look forward, either expanding capacity,
Right.
or expanding locations. That's all.
But see, like right
I
now,
get that
for
question a lot,
example,
Greg.
yes. So we should all be
Change
able to get
something.
on this podcast and say, all right, as a global ecosystem amongst all your practices or all your operations, where are you generally at within that, as you like to say, annual utilization rate, right? So fine. Right now, I'm around 400, which
Okay.
means guess what? Right now,
Mhm.
my only focus is expansion and
Mhm.
building. I'm building a building and I'm expanding another. That's
Yep.
because I sense that. The good thing about what we're talking about that most people need to understand is that we're not making emotional response. Most of us would probably say you emotionally know you need to expand, but how much or how little you need to expand is based on actually knowing your numbers. And
You're
that's where
saying emotionally driven decision versus data driven decision.
exactly.
Right?
And that's where we have to focus on. And so I love talking big numbers and saying, all right, well, this is where we're at. I'm at this scale and that number. I've got room to grow if I expand this one and this one and this one, we make that happen. But it's numbers related. So that's number 3. Number 4.
Number 4, they build systems of operations, right? So I am of the mindset that every dental practice on the planet has standard operating procedures. They just might not be the ones that you intended your office to have, right? In an absence of you being the director of creating step-by-step methodology and the way you should do it, your team is allowed to go rogue and figure things out on their own, which could be highly inefficient, highly non-productive, and actually be contrarian to number 1, which is your vision. So I have seen the teams that I have seen, the dentists that I have seen being very successful are very purposeful with the way in which they run things, right? The way that we answer the phones. Here's how we answer the phones. And I'm not saying that you become robotic, but it creates guardrails for people as opposed to letting people just be free range chickens.
I agree.
That means any
Build
sense.
it or it will be built for
There
you.
you go. I mean, yeah. And like that sounds like, oh, I'd just rather be built for me. But no, it's going to be built in a catastrophic manner.
1,000%.
Yeah.
You got to be careful about the fact that, who builds your vision for you. Yes, you're building a team, but are you letting them take it off in this is the brand killer, as I call it, especially in multi-locations or even department to department. If you have a mega practice, central mega practice, right? Like if you go into one part of the building or you go into one location, it feels very, very different. Not because of, like, we've got some, practices that are out towards the country versus those in town. Yes, they have a different feel because the clientele attaches, but the brand, the feel of the practice, the walking in, the walking out, what it smells like, what it acts like, how things are checked out, how those treatment plans are done, the quality of care, like that should be consistent. That comes off of building systems and processes. And it also keeps you stable. It makes your, it has to be built off of numbers too. Like,
and you become less of the cog, the most important cog, because you're not now the chaperone of making sure everything is answered right. And did we do this? And we do this insurance verification right? And how did we treat Mrs. Jones? And what was the filling we put in there? Right? You don't become the nucleus of everything, like I said, right? There's a way you just adopt things, and it's written down, and everyone abides by it, and it makes everyone happier. Yeah. And so the dentists that I see that are obsessive about this, they have big organizations and they're able to scale a little bit easier in a non-chaotic manner.
This is what I think about when I hear people saying, I can't find anybody good for my practice.
Yeah.
It's because they're recruiting people that are pre-built and ready to be successful. Well, there's probably 10% of the market out there in recruitment. If they're coming into a systems and processes and onboarding and consistency, and they hear the same thing from everybody on the team, guess what? More of the applicant pool is able to come and be successful in your office. The goal is, are we looking for pre-made people? Are we looking for the understanding that anybody can be successful in our environment, or the majority?
One of the biggest reasons people quit, you guys, is because they didn't get enough training.
Absolutely. On board. Yeah.
Right?
They go through that disillusioned learner stage where they're like walking around the practice unaware of what to do.
And how many times have we heard this? I've even probably been guilty of it myself. Just get someone on the phones to answer the things. Right? Yeah. The most important job in the practice, I say, just put someone on there to get a warm body to answer the phone, right? Look, and that is not bueno.
Dangerous, yeah.
Dangerous, right? But
well, in the same, like I'll give you an example of the opposite end of it. So I know very successful dentists that are producing millions of dollars a year with their own hands. And they're just like, I just want to do the dentistry. I'm going to go hire the CEO. Yeah. And they're going to run everything for me. I'm going to pay this person.
That CEO is building systems, Greg.
Right. But it's also that CEO may not know dentistry and there's no transference. You can't plug and play a CEO, as we all know, or a director of operations, plug them in and just walk away and do your dentistry.
Right. But they come from a world of more of like a checklist manifesto where things happen sequentially. So
you just can't
I know we all
it.
think dentistry is super unique, and it's not. It's business, it's method, it's processes. Yeah, we're dealing with clinical. Yeah, we're dealing with human bodies. Yeah, we're dealing with other things. But at the end of the day, it still is operationally.
Yeah, but we're managing other dentists at that level, the high level where you're ready to hire a CEO. You're managing other dentists, not just team. And dentists have a fatal flaw that they only like to listen to dentists, which is interesting.
That's an accountability piece, which is kind of the second part of this whole concept of building systems of operations. So you can build the systems, but you got to build the accountability on the back end of the systems too, to keep them. It's a self-perpetuating system of systems.
The checks and balances,
so the systems stay in place.
Right.
It is. It's checks and balances and making sure that they are getting done. And once the systems are in place, it is.
So where's the fine line between that and like micromanaging?
Micromanaging, if I was to answer that question right now, that's people managing people. Mm-hmm. Systems managing people is not micromanaging.
People managing people is micromanaging.
I like that.
Systems managing people is just a systematic.
Yeah. And not always, but a system isn't going to micromanage someone because it can't do more or less.
But it does define, I think, like I was saying, it defines the guardrails of like, here's what's acceptable. Here's what a touchdown looks like. Here's well, here's what a fumble looks like, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it.
Okay. All right. I like it. All right. This one comes up a lot for me. Successful dentist. The fifth habit of successful dentists is they understand marketing. And let me put a disclaimer on this. I'm not saying that they do their own marketing, but they understand their marketing. How many of us have seen some of our colleagues be taken advantage of in this field because they, like Craig's saying, they just wanted to do dentistry. I hired this marketing company, and the marketing company could quickly ascertain the level of acumen they have from a marketing perspective, and they set it and forget it, your practice. Meanwhile, you are paying them on a recurring basis. So why do I think this is important? Because it is one, if growth and continuing to grow and growing your practice and getting more successful in your town is predicated on awareness, for you not to understand how to get more awareness startles me. Startles me.
Yeah.
Right.
And also when we talk about marketing too, Pete, it's not just the message you're displaying out to the public. It's how your brand is perceived. So your location, your reception area, your finishes, your uniforms,
that's all
marketing. And even if you never spend a dollar, you've actually, and you're busy, it's probably because your brand is great.
You're talking about the marketing of patient experience, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's all understanding. It's all marketing. They don't go to you, even though you don't think they go to you for your location and your facility and the way it looks. They do. People actually choose places.
I go to places because of the way they look and feel. Right?
1,000%. Yeah.
That's the branding piece of marketing that I think a lot of people ignore because they get too hung up on SEO and social media marketing and Google ads and all these other things, and then they leave apart that
right, which is even worse.
And they wonder why, right? The retention rate isn't high. Like, oh, they're low quality patients because they came to my practice and never came back. That might not be a low quality patient. Potentially, it could be the experience they got when they got there, right? Your office was dirty. The team was grumpy. You had terrible bedside manner, didn't know how to talk to them. Like, right? It's not just like, oh, I hooked them as a new patient and now I have them in perpetuity. It's an ongoing courtship, in my opinion. So let me keep unpacking this just a second. Again, when I say they understand marketing, it's only so that they know enough about each scenario, whether it's, oh, I know how Google ads work. I know how to run ads on Facebook marketing. I know how to maybe make my own ad on Canva or something like that. They have enough acumen in all sides of what they're doing where they can have qualified conversations with the person that they're deploying with so that they can, on a regular basis, audit what they're doing. If you know nothing about it, right? If you know nothing about marketing, then you will accept anything as a result.
I think of all the things besides my weekly operational cadence meeting that we do Monday morning or whatever. This is the one other department I meet with every single week. Because for me, it's holding accountability, especially if you're outsourcing anything, holding accountability to those dollars used and that stuff output. But to me, it gives me the greatest litmus test to how the pulse on the practices, how things are going, how the community sees us, how the brand is being carried, and what are we thinking about? Because it is the most flexible, it's the most dynamic portion of our business that we can turn those faucets on or turn them
on and off.
And we should not just let it just run because it floods, and then we lose sight of understanding our efficiencies. It should be the ability to throttle it forward and back because maybe you're gaining better efficiencies and you're doing better work and you need less of certain types of marketing and things to that degree. But I think
Dwight, to be able to titrate that based on knowing your numbers, going back a slide, is like a freaking superpower. Like, I'm sorry to get so heated here, but like, it's amazing. I know my numbers. I actually have a great month. I've had great 3 months. Maybe I can tone down my marketing, which will enhance my P&L, which will only enhance my EBITDA, which makes me more valuable.
Right. Well, it's like my favorite story. I always hear every dentist say, "Oh, September and October. Okay, I'm just going to sit back. It's just crappy months." I'm like, so you know this every year and you don't make any pivots
And
in
3 months
market.
prior, you're not doing something categorically different.
Right. How are we not prepping for this? How are we not holding off on specials and, financing options for Invisalign or whatever the heck you're doing? You're trying to build them up and getting prepped. I mean, for us, your team should be anxious to make sure that these things are getting plugged and played when they need to be taken off, because that is the throttling you need to do. If you're just throttling it all year long, then yes, those months are going to continue to be, but there are times when you need these ways to stimulate your practice, and that's when you use them. You don't just say, well, I need them all the time. No, you actually don't. And so I think it's really healthy to understand the metrics by which we implement.
I think one of the biggest, and then I'll shut up on this, but obviously everyone knows I like the marketing. One of the biggest joys of my career in coaching other dentists has been turning the lights on in this capacity for them, right?
Okay.
Meaning that like, it doesn't have to be this like box where you don't know what goes in and out, like training them or having them go to courses and learn about it, and then feel this like emboldened sense of like, nothing can stop me now. Right.
Yeah.
And like, that's been just, I've seen it. And now, and I can think of 4 intimate guys and gals, actually 3 guys and 1 gal that have done this, and it's changed the direction and the enthusiasm of their entire career.
You've also taken all of our practices at a deeper level, in a lot of categories. I mean, I know we've all influenced each other, but in many, many ways, I mean, Peter, you've taken a lot of the stuff that was a niche for me, and you're like, stack it in a different way or think of it in a different way and double check your ROI. Like, how many of us had all this SEO being spent? You're like, oh, really? Or, and just understanding it just at a higher level. It's kind of like the podcast we did with regards to crypto. It's like getting off zero. For me, marketing is the same way for everybody. The fact that you haven't tried it and you didn't follow through with it, and you didn't go back and track it to the actual ROI of production within your business, understanding it was a worthy avatar to pursue, or all these other things, seems overwhelming. But you don't get to that point until you get off zero with marketing. And you've got to do it.
But this brings a really good, marketing is a perfect microcosm of the whole thing, in that it's goal oriented. You don't market to market. You market with a very specific goal of whether it be new patients or whatever, retention, whatever your goal is from a marketing standpoint. Then you need to delegate from a position of authority. So you need to understand it enough to know what you're talking about, to have those high level conversations. And then you need to track your numbers. So, I heard this one time that I always loved. It was half my marketing dollar is wasted. I just don't know which half.
Therefore, you can't change a thing, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So then you spend the time looking at, okay, well, how do we minimize the wasted half and maximize and you do that by numbers, follow through, and continually basically just evaluating that system.
Right. And in the absence of understanding your business, understanding your vision, what you'll do is you'll just market 2 special offers, a $15 new patient exam and cleaning or whatever else. That's why you slip down into that sea of undifferentiated competition. It's just a sad place to be. So it's
I'm going to keep the bus moving in an effort of keeping this pod somewhat condensed. Number 6, they learn how to delegate. On the come up, all of our come ups, right? We had more time than money, right? I remember those times all too clear, right? I was the guy putting TVs up in the ceiling, learning them, all the things, right? Now I'm not trying to give the walking to school in the snow both ways scenario, but like, we all remember those times.
Yeah.
In the come up, you have more time than money. Successful dentists, I think, then start learning that they can buy their time with the money by learning how to delegate and get out of the way, like we kind of talked about in the beginning, and hiring for their inadequacies, leaving them to do their superpower, but not being afraid to hire and delegate and being like, you're the best person for this job. Whether you believe it or not, it frees it from your plate. I'd like to hear some of your comments.
I like to say, with regards to this, the focus, I'm going to say this slowly because I actually went over this with a couple of leadership teams. The focus is to realize my fully exploited strengths are more valuable to the team than my marginally improved weaknesses. You see what I'm saying? So
my team. You said that to my team.
That's beautifully said.
I like
So
that,
the
Dwight.
focus is to realize my fully exploited strengths are more valuable to the team than my marginally improved weaknesses. And for some reason, leaders think that in order to be a good leader, I need to be a well-rounded leader. And that's a bunch of BS. What you need to be is a well-rounded team. And we need to exploit my strengths by having team members who carry my weaknesses, and we can exploit those are their strengths. And don't spend so much, because leaders try to spend so much time trying to like marginally incrementally better their weaknesses. And the truth is why? It's an absolute waste, right? And that's where I think we get caught the most in our business, and we spin our wheels more than anything else, trying to be like, I got all of this. I can carry all of it. It's why our vision ends up being unfulfilling if we carry it all on our own shoulders. Not to mention our business ends up being not profitable. Like Craig was saying, I carried it all on my shoulders for so long. Well, guess what? He produced a high top line revenue, but he wasn't as successful in the profitability margins because he didn't get out of the way of his team to be able to do it the right way and decentralized decision making, right?
And by the way, Dwight, the delegation comes through dental work as well. One of the top questions we all get answered is, when do I add an associate? When's the right time to add an associate? Well, if you've added an associate and you're paying that dentist, $500, $600, $700 a day, guaranteed minimum, and you're running around like a maniac doing the dentistry and they're sitting at their desk twiddling their thumbs, you got a big problem on your hands. You got to really figure out what you're doing.
Yeah.
So learning to replace you is really important.
Anything? Okay. Awesome. Number 7, they become specialized on the things that they want to do. And I do mean this in a clinical aspect, actually, guys. So there are things that we do in our day, in our clinical day, and they would pull from your battery, right? I want to use kind of some energy units getting into Dwight's world. Yeah. They would drain some energy units from you because you hated doing class 2 composites, or you hated doing veneers, or whatever. You hated doing extractions. Like, let me raise my hand on that one, right? If you want a dry socket, come to me. But they would drain you, make you anxious because you would see it on the schedule. You'd have this anxiety all day long. So it's nice being able to get to a place where you can stand for something and say, you know what, I'm going to work towards. I'm not going to just one day declare I'm never doing that again. But my goal is to work towards specialization of the things I want to do, not specialization inside the career of dentistry. I'm not saying, I know we have specialties. I'm saying get to do more things that light you up during the day clinically, whether it's veneers, maybe you get lit up by class 2 composites or occlusal composites with stain, who knows? But like, become the master of that in your practice and let go of some of the things that you may be doing that are draining you, even though they are productive for you, quote unquote, even though you're collecting money from them, quote unquote, they are still draining you on the daily, which is then going to potentially shorten your career because you are going to burn out.
Yeah, but this is the throttle of every entrepreneur, right? I mean, if you don't get out of your way, if you don't get out of that seat that is not made for you, and you've got to be able to, in particular clinically, like when you add a doctor, like Craig just said, you've got to be able to purge that off. And then guess what? You become more daily fulfilled. If you don't think the team feels that negativity and that cruddy attitude about wanting to get up and do an MOD, DO, MOD, like, and that's not your game plan. And guess what? You've now built something worth. Start fulfilling and enjoying your practice as you're growing it. This is one of the ways in which you get to do that.
Craig, you're the poster child for this, right? Like,
I hated my business for a while.
Yeah, because you were doing shit you didn't want to do, and now you have this you were like, look, I should only be doing my Invisalign practice because I really like it. I'm really good at it.
Right, and then that changed though too. So like, we have to give grace for what we say and what we do, because at one point I was the only guy that would do like the all-on-4s and the high level stuff, and no one else would want to come into that ecosystem, and I hated that. And it could, because when you're doing FMRs like you were, Peter, you cannot pick up for 1 minute and go like talk to Sally, your hygienist. So it's pretty binary.
7-hour procedure.
So it's pretty binary for you, Peter. You had you were at 9.9 on the Deno scale, 10 being the highest intensity. You were always at 9.9. So I stepped down to Invisalign, which is like 4.2 on the dentist scale. And then even that became too much. And now I'm only 1 day a week, 1 column a week in Invisalign. So it's just nice to select and change over time. You know, I think that's what.
Oh, and a good point you got to make that Craig, you touched on this earlier, but you have to be a generalist to then become specialized.
100%. That's actually what I'm saying here, Trey. Yes. You have to eat
So you
all
have
the
to go and
glass
explore.
until you can get to that point.
Yeah, you do.
But the growth and the drive, then, to echo what Dwight said at the beginning of it all, this is your driver.
Mm-hmm. Just to enjoy it, savor it.
This is what takes it forward, because now you're focusing on the strengths, you're delegating the weaknesses, you've built a team around that, and now you have synergy.
And now you've created abundance in your practice where someone else can now fill in for you, meaning and help you out. You are now not the most important person in the room, or maybe you are, but at least now, like, hey, I can hire an associate now because I want to give all of these things to them, as opposed to I'm going to hog it all and take it because I need to collect everything and be, I want to go on vacation, whatever it is, right? You become specialized in what you want to do. Your team knows that. You become the best at that. And then you delegate the rest of those clinical procedures to someone else in your organization. That's actually a large part of how kind of we grew at Atlanta Dental Spa, honestly, was dividing and conquering and doing some things and doing cross referrals to help embolden our little micro practices within the practice. So, okay, guys, last one. I don't even know what it is. Oh, my favorite one of all. That's why I saved it to last. It was in the order of importance. Number 8, they learn how to enroll. Let me pause for a second. When I say learn how to enroll, they learn how to communicate. Not that they become salesperson-y and they learn how to enroll, but they learn how to communicate. Warren Buffett, it's a funny quote I just saw recently. Actually, PBD, Craig. I get his initials and my initials confused.
P. Diddy?
No, my initials are Peter Dawson Bolden. And his
wow, no wonder he became a dentist.
Right? He's my granddad. Yeah. No, he's not. But I get those initials confused. My point is, he posted something that was talking about Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett says the $100 speaking course that I went to, I think it was Toastmasters, is worth 10 times more than any degree that I've ever earned. And I say this all the time. I know it's probably beat this horse, but like the communication, being able to take something complex, Craig, you talked about FMR, right? Being able to enroll in FMR and distill it down to something that the patient can understand without 20 years of having dental knowledge. And it goes back to even the conversation, Craig, you and I had a couple podcasts ago, talking about the words to use and words not to use, right? Like this all rolls into it. The enrollment is an art, right? The communication is an art, learning body language, learning all these things, the patient experience. How do we make them feel? That's all people remember. But the dentist, the highly successful dentist that I know, can enroll dentistry. You put someone in a room that's quasi interested in X procedure and they will enroll it.
And by the way, those dentists that are that phenomenal at enrolling typically can enroll people in their vision, by the way, and they can enroll team members to build the team. So what you're speaking to is a larger construct that kind of ties all these 8 habits back. And it's a confidence and belief in yourself.
Yes, it's a swagger for sure.
Swagger, right? But you have to figure out what makes your heart happy. And I know this sounds real woo-woo, but if you really believe in something, like even if it was a pizza shop, like I'm going to build the best ingredients and we're going to change pizza, your team will be behind you. Your numbers will be great whether you choose to listen or not. But if you stand for something big and you want to, there's like a gravitational pull to beautiful ideas. Mm-hmm. And the enrollment factor comes from a dentist that's actually built a vision. It's different. We do it differently. I just believe that
I agree and disagree with this, Craig. Here's why.
They're all intimately tied together is all I'm saying.
They're not dependent. If I dream of hitting home runs, okay, but I don't go and practice that.
Oh, yes, of course. But the first thing is the dream. The dream is the home run. I want to do
Dream
it.
is a small faction of that, in my opinion.
No, because you won't practice. You won't have the follow
the
through,
desire.
the grit.
Right.
It's hard to go to the batting cage all freaking day.
Self-motivator.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, and take what Craig's saying and bring it into the clinical aspect of it. I would argue that you have an ethical obligation as a clinician of any type in healthcare to enroll, because
good for them.
That is going to be something that shows you that you believe in what you do. If you don't believe that your dentistry is worthwhile, or that this isn't
Or
needed,
you feel
or
it's
this isn't beneficial to
salesy,
someone,
right? How many times have we heard that? That's salesy dentistry.
Yeah, salesy.
That person has a problem
Sales.
with their own belief system, not an enrolling
But
skill.
if you believe in what you have and what you do, you will enroll, and then you will get good at enrolling, because you know that people are benefited by what you do, by your skill set, whether it be dentistry or surgery, whatever clinical aspect in healthcare you are. You should be able to enroll. You should be constantly focusing to get better, because you believe in what you do. And if you don't, then you should really reevaluate what you're doing all day
and
every
change
day.
it and take a sidestep and pivot that. But it's true. I mean, the U.S. government spends tens of millions of dollars in advertising campaigns just to get people to put on their seatbelt, when we know it saves lives, but they still have to market that. So it's like, if you believe what you're doing is akin to the seatbelt saving lives and helping people and all that stuff.
Here's why I'm bringing the baseball analogy, Craig. Sorry. Okay.
I like baseball.
You spend massive amounts of money building a practice, growing a team, figuring out the marketing, finally to get a butt in the chair. And then you shit all over yourself sometimes because you can't communicate what the patient really needed. And they leave more confused than ever. Now they go to the next office, or don't enroll, or you hit them up like, hey, Sally will take care of you. And then they'll say, hey, we'll call you later. And then you never call. My point is, it takes so much effort to get an at-bat in dentistry. Don't blow it. And don't blow it by not learning how to talk to someone and communicate and make them feel amazingly special for that small tranche of time that you have with them.
And all of us have a ton of docs on our teams. And it's not just the doctor, it's the hygienist that and they're the one with the relationship, and they have a conversation. And I get that there's a whole dynamic to enrollment, but it is about, as Bruce Baird used to coin it, the one act play of enrollment, meaning you can walk in and you can connect with that one individual and where they're at, so that they understand their needs, so that they commit and build a relationship with the practice, build a relationship with you, and kind of be able to go from there. And then you follow up on your systems and processes and all that to kind of hand off of that. But I'm with you. We spend a lot of dollars in marketing. We spend a lot of efforts to get them in the chair, and then we botch it, simply just coming in and acting too, clinical or too academic, not connecting with them, not asking about themselves.
Making them wait 45 minutes in your reception. Or like just making it clunky to,
or making them physically uncomfortable and putting them back in the
or not calling them after you give them an injection, like things like this. They're just
There's those that are tactical, and I know your brain goes there, and that's what makes the four of us so powerful together, is that we all have different perceptions on it. The thing that's magically, like, I'm using magic, that's helped me help other people, like a Mimi, or like Mimi, who's a former mastermind, or the doctors in my practice, is actually like a worthiness conversation where, like, I'm like, when their margins are really good and they're really good at dentistry and they're taking all the CE, I'm like, these patients are lucky that you're there. You have a heart, you care, you want to do the right thing for them. That unlocks a lot of people too. So it's the at-bat, but it's a self-esteem thing plus the tactical. If you have great self-esteem and you leave them in the chair for 40 minutes and you botch the whole freaking thing, and you're like, hey, it's going to be a lot of money. I don't even know what it's going to be, but it's going to be a lot of money. Like, people say stupid shit and really screw up their treatment plans.
But that's it. I mean, that's where they come from, right? Is those craftsmen that are hyper-focused and they're incredible clinicians. Guess what? They're also the ones who are most likely to get sued because they're too non-relationship, very granular, all these other things. And these other ones come have these relationships with these people. They could actually screw up, but they told them all about the risks, all the things, and they've got a relationship. Be like, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to stand by it. And I think that's where the difference is. And it is coachable. It's something that you can spend time on, and you can learn, and you can spend time getting to know and do better. We just have to put time in. We have to put the practice in, like you said. try and hit it out of the park. That's what it takes.
I love it. I love it. I learned a lot today, actually, guys.
I did too.
Anything of the 8 that you would either add or anything that you would add to the 8 things of a highly successful dentist? Anything else you would add that we didn't cover, you think?
The biggie for
I
me.
think you need to end cap.
Communication. Yeah.
You need to
Oh,
put
what?
an end cap on that. Rinse, wash, repeat.
Okay.
You get to the end,
I
you
like that,
start over,
Trey.
you keep going.
I like that, Trey.
Yeah. I was worried you were going to knock out the communication, but I'm not surprised that that's
No. I actually said
Because-
I said it wasn't in order of importance, but I think there was some of that. I wanted to end on something that I felt very passionate about. And honestly, it's funny. Like people, look, I am inherently an introvert. All day long, going to work, enrolling patients drained the absolute shit out of me. But I had to learn my way out of that, meaning I had to practice and record myself in mirrors and act like this. I would record myself in an operatory with Miss Fictitious Jones, and I'd listen to myself doing a treatment presentation. I'd be like, I sound like an absolute buffoon, right? And then I'd do it again, and I was like, I sound like a little less of a buffoon. And then I'd do it again and be like, all right, it's getting a little bit better, right? But to your point, Craig, about the swagger, then ultimately after doing it for 10, 15, 10 years, you walk in with a different swagger. And now you can't unenroll people, right? Because you have such confidence and you're so passionate about what you're doing that people just are gravitationally pulled to that. And they're like, he's my guy, you know? And so that's, I don't know. I guess what I'm talking is to that because most dentists or a lot of dentists I know are introverted as well. And they get uncomfortable around either money conversations or enrollment conversations or clinical conversations. And it drains us, but practice makes progress, not perfection.
I agree. Well,
yeah, I love this. It's I think there's a couple recurring themes like the art of it, and I think that your career is meant to be an artistic expression. A good life is artistic. The art of making friendships, the art of building relationships, the art of communication, all these things. If you're an excellent communicator, you will learn this, but they overlap. So it's not just making your career better. When you become an exceptional communicator, your whole life gets better. It's not just if you can build a team, you can build your relationships with your family. You can I look at business almost like a religious thing. Just add value, help people, and like it all keeps going. I like the outro music, by the way. I mean,
what you said was dreamy there. So I'm going out with dreamy. Guys, I want to say I really enjoyed this format. I like,
it was a good time.
Maybe Craig and I have had just too much of each other, and we just end up we know what the other person's gonna say. So maybe it's nice having some new energy.
Throw a curveball in there.
Well,
I'd like to say this for y'all.
Dwight, kudos to you for the intro and all the stuff. You are now the new resident. That is now your job in perpetuity.
I have to write some
no one can beat that. And
anybody wants me to put their voicemail on for them, I'm happy.
Ladies, it's a lady. Craig, who are we about to go have a pod with? Let's get everyone hyped for who he
This guy is a big deal.
Not you two. You two are out.
Thomas
Craig and I have to go on.
Dr. Thomas Rodri out of UK. I'm excited about this dude. I feel like I should rap this outro one time. Check it.
Take us out, Craig. Take us out. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to us. We enjoyed this talk, and we'll see you next time on the Bulletproof Pod. Over and out.